Are your tear bears flat and boring? Then make them 3D. Hi everyone, welcome to the first episode of Alicazam. I'm Alica and today I'll be showing you how to make a 3D tear bear. You can customize them and almost all of my layouts include tear bears because they add great dimension to a layout. If you're looking for something to do during the quarantine, this would be a great hobby to start. Okay, let's get started. Let's talk supplies. Okay, the key to tear bears is the mulberry paper. This is what will give you that nice fuzzy texture when you tear it.
Oh, that's music to my ears.
You can buy any color you like depending on the animal you're making. Just make sure it is thick mulberry paper because the thicker, the better. You'll see here that the white is thinner than the brown, so it will require about 3 layers instead of 2. Hence, more time and more work for your project. You'll also need to get a mini steel brush, which is like a barbecue brush the size of a toothbrush. These brushes are used to make mulberry paper even fluffier. I like to use blending chalk to add shading and coloring. You'll need paintbrushes to apply the blending chalk.
Okay.
Blending chalks are optional, but I think it makes bears look even better. For the eyes, you will need white signal pen, any color moonlight pen, and a black micron pen. The moonlight pen is really great for writing on black paper. Just pick any color you like for the eye color. If you want nice feathery eyelashes, I highly recommend getting your black pen in 0.5mm. I also like to use tweezers. They're completely optional, but I find them oh so useful. I also recommend getting a blade. The one I have here is designed to fit the curvature of your fingertip. I sometimes use this as a hack to make it easier to tear. Last but not least, you'll need to get some glue. Try to get acid-free glue so that your project doesn't discolor over time. That's it, on to the bear. First thing first, take your pattern and cut out to pieces either by hand or by your cutting machine. You can also use your cutting machine to create a stencil.
Wait a minute. You're not going to tell them how they can get the pattern for free?
Well, I'm glad you asked. Just scroll down to the section in the description that says supplies. And if you look further down, it says resources. You'll see 2 options. First is the pattern you can get for free by subscribing to my free email newsletter.
Sweet.
Or if you prefer not to give away your email address, you have the option to buy it.
Awesome.
After cutting out all your pattern pieces, just trace them onto the mulberry paper. Try not to use a pen when tracing the pattern because the ink could show through. And make sure to trace the pattern on the back side. I recommend putting a gap in between each piece. If there's not enough space, it'll make it harder to tear. After you trace the pattern onto the mulberry paper, just tear along the line. Tear along the line, soldier! Do you understand me, soldier?
Sir, yes, sir.
If your pattern isn't clean, soldier, are you gonna leave it that way, soldier?
Sir, no, sir.
Will it show up, soldier, if you don't clean it up, soldier?
Sir, yes, sir.
Now go finish the rest of this video, soldier! To clean it up, All you have to do is pull at the bits that seem to extend further than your pattern. Be careful not to tear off too much. It's better to be safe than sorry. If you don't tear off too much, you can always tear more, but if you tear off too much, you can't go back and fix it. You'll see that you can kind of see the line from when I trace the pattern, and that's the reason why you want to use a pencil. Oh, and if you're making your own 3D tear bear, I'd love for you to share pictures with me. Just put it on my Facebook page and add a tag. I'll put all the details in the description. And there it is, all cleaned up. Now there are some people that tell you to tear by wetting the mulberry paper and then tearing around it, but I've tried that and I don't like it. I find there's less control when the mulberry paper is wet. You'll see here that I'm struggling to tear along the pattern. I tried to clean around the edges, but it kept tearing more than I wanted. Also, when you tear the mulberry paper when it's wet, then it tends to flatten it. Here is an example of a piece of mulberry paper that was torn using the wetting method. And here's one using the dry method. You'll see that the wetted one looks a little bit flattened out and a little bit scraggly instead of fluffy. And then on top of it, you can't use the paper right away because you have to wait for it to dry. Here are all my pieces. I doubled the patterns to make my bear thicker. Sometimes, if I'm making a lot of tear bears, my hand does get tired, so this is when the blade comes in handy. I like to take the blade and score the pattern with it. You don't want to cut all the way through, just score it. This makes it easier to tear, and it also gives it a nice clean look. So now I'm going to double layer my pieces and assemble my bear. To double layer your pattern, just glue together two pieces by applying glue around the edges and then press those edges together. This is when people usually finish up the projects, but I'll show you how to take your bears from 2D to 3D. Oh, but first we have to go to a commercial break. Ladies and gentlemen, we now present to you the secret to making your tear bears 3D. If you want your pattern pieces to look 3D, just curl the edges along your finger.
Hey, neat! I see what you're doing there. Hey, did you come up with this technique yourself? Ooh, tell me more.
I like to go around twice just to really make sure that the edges are rounded.
Good to know.
Your backside should look something like this. And if you want to make your bear really pop, we're going to make the muzzle, ears, and paws even more 3D. All you need are dots, which are 3D glue dots. Remember, these dots are really sticky, so be careful when you're using them.
You don't want to get yourself into a sticky situation.
If you're making a bear with exposed feet pads, then you also want to use the 3D dots for those pads. To use the dots, just place one in the middle of your pattern and place some glue around the edges and then seal the edges. If you don't seal them, you'll see an unsightly gap. After you have sealed the edges, just apply the same curling technique as before and curl the edges along your finger. You can put the optional white pad before or after you seal the edges. Now repeat the curling process with all your pattern pieces and add any dots if necessary. You can either add simple eyes and nose and glue everything together at this point, or you can first fluff the bears and add some shading. Just keep watching and I'll show you how. Okay, it's time to take out your mini steel brush and start fluffing some bears. Now when you're working with the fluffing brush, you have to keep in mind that it is made out of steel and it can break you. To fluff your bear, just take your steel brush and lightly brush your pattern. I like to start at the edge and work my way in. If you look closely, you'll see that I'm brushing in kind of a curved motion. You don't want to just brush straight out. Here are some tips to remember. You might feel a slight snag, and that's perfectly normal. Be careful about brushing the same spot over and over because the paper could thin out and you're left with almost a see-through hole. It's best to do your fluffing before you do your shading. If you were to do the shading first, then all the chalk will get rubbed off when you're brushing the paper. Smaller pieces are easier to fluff than bigger pieces. See how nice and fluffy the paw is getting? When you're fluffing a lot, you sometimes end up with a lot of fuzz flying in the air, so this is when your mask would come in really handy. Repeat the fluffing process for all your pieces and then it's on to the next part, making the face. Drawing the face may take a little bit of practice, but that's okay. If you take a look at my early works, you'll see that my bears have improved quite a bit. So with practice, your bears should improve with time. Alright, let's get started with the eyes, shall we? Okay, let's recap. Oh, look at those puppy eyes. For the nose, simply draw a line across. Easy peasy, says the person that just drew crooked. Now that I have my eyes and nose ready, I'm going to position the face. For the eyes, you want to position them as far out to the edge of the muzzle as possible. And place them at a slight degree angle. Sometimes it takes me several tries to find the right position and angle. Once you are satisfied with the placement, just trace around the eyes. Personally, I prefer to trace before I glue. That way, I know exactly where to place the glue. What I'm doing here is going down the eyes, and then touching up the outline. Now just draw a small line under the nose. Now I'm gonna start coloring around the eyes, but the brush is too fluffy. So So I'm just going to dip the brush into some water and reshape it into a fine tip. Let it dry and then it's ready to use. To start, just trace around the eye with the blending chalk. Try not to make it too thick. I like to use the end of the stick to blend the edges. I think it gives the color a nice transition. You can add some optional white blending chalk between the eyes. Okay, the moment of truth. This part always makes me nervous. I'm using a 0.07mm pen here, and it seems to leave gaps, which the 0.05mm doesn't have that problem. Now that I've drawn on the eyelashes, I'm just going to touch up a little bit on the blending chalk. Okay, now that we're ready to start, take your brush and lightly add blending chalk. You want to have a light touch. I want everything nice and fluffy. As with the fluffing, you don't want to just go outwards. You want to go in the direction of the fur. Shading is completely optional, but I think it really adds a nice touch. It really adds a lot of dimension. Okay, here are all my pieces all fluffed and shading added. Once all those are done, I like to put them together and just do a little bit more a touch up. That way I can see it all together and decide if it needs a little bit more chalk. If I am satisfied with everything, this is when I would glue everything together. And there you have it, a 3D tear bear. Hope you found this video helpful or entertaining. Keep an eye out for part 2 where I'll show you how to embellish a tear bear. In part 2, I'll show you how to make paper piecings, fabric dresses, and polymer clay treats. Good luck!
Why is this not the same color? That's so weird.
If you like today's designs, you can check out the merch for this collection in my store. Just click the link. And if there's a product you'd like to see that's not available, just leave a comment and I'll do my best to add it. If you like today's video, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit that bell. Here are my social media handles. Leave a comment below and see you next time.